This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 330, recorded on October 12th, 2017. Here in Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find news reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from kind of a messy Average Guy.tv studios. We'll talk a little bit about it, some new equipment. I've been moving things around, but I got stuff all over the place. There's a mic buried in this pile as a check for like $600. I need to
take that to the bank. Yeah,
it was a loan. It was the loan proceeds back. You know, when you put your kids in college, you take out all this money. They can't figure it out like to the penny. So there was a little more, so they send it back. So it'll eventually go to pay something off.
Right.
But of course, so it's kind of messy here at the Average Guy.tv studios. But we post a show, world-class show notes, each week out at the Average Guy.tv. You can also join us live on the mobile app each week. If you want to catch us live, and you know, a dozen of you do, head out to homegadgetgeeks.com, download the app for free, Android and iPhone. Actually, there was an iPhone update to that app this week for iOS 11. So if you haven't checked that out, go out there and get that download and get it updated. We appreciate you listening to it. We thank LastPass for their sponsorship of that app. And Amber is coming on here on the 2nd of November. I think that's the right day. And you'll want to join us for that as well. The best way to support the show, though, is through Patreon, both pre and post show. Now available out there if you want to. And a couple of you did this week. Chad, thank you for doing that. Michael Ray redid his. Thank you guys for supporting us on Patreon, and $1 and $5 plans, or actually you can do whatever you want on Patreon. It's pretty easy as long as it's in dollar increments. You can't like do $1.75, but it's out there and available for you. If you go to theaverageguy.tv and just click on the Patreon link, it's there. We want to thank Kyle Wilcox last week for his amazing demo of the podcast studio and kind of YouTube studio is what I'm calling it, of what he did in his school district. And if you haven't checked that out yet, go back to 329, and Kyle did a great job. I got a lot.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, good.
Oh, well, one of the best episodes. I was listening to that as I was driving down to Wichita, and I was like, oh, man, that was cool. One of those where I had to go back, though, and look at the video to see the pictures you guys were talking about because I was driving just listening to the audio. But fantastic show. He did a great job.
Yeah, he did. Kyle, thanks for doing that. He has been on fire over at the Spreaker live show as well. He sent in an audio question, and he's just been working with Rob and Alex over there. So Kyle, nice work on the show. If you missed it, head back 329. Love to have you catch up on that. Today, we're going to catch up with Mike Wieger. Mike, welcome back, man. Great to see you.
Feels like I haven't been here in like a year. I know it's only been like a month and a half or so, but it feels like it's been forever. There was actually like a cobweb from my monitor down to my mixer because I haven't been down here in so long. I've just been out of town every single week.
Not good. You and I have been, not every week, but we've been getting together a couple times on some of the weeks, some more than others. We'll talk about some why here as we talk a little bit about the mining, but what's been going on at work? Anything interesting? KPMG been keeping you just busy at this point?
Very, very busy. Yeah, doing a lot of cool stuff, actually. Working a lot with IPO stuff lately. So very fun, exciting times with the people we work with. And it's kind of a new experience for me, something I haven't done in my first year. But so it's learning and helping them out. So it's a lot of fun doing all that sort of stuff, but also keeping me on the road. So I've been down in Kansas for the last few months, but I'll be back here and hopefully back in the seat more often come November. And then the little one, is coming in December. So we're going to have 2 little runs running around this house coming in December.
One is easy. One is easy.
Yeah. Well, 1 is easy.
2 is some work. 3, you're just drowning. That's so quit it.
It's not good. It's not good at 3. It's zone D it's still man to man at 2. And then you go into zone D and it's just all downhill.
It's just prevent. It's just prevent defense. That's all you're. that's all you're doing at that point. Yeah, you're just going to survive. You have, Mike. You and I, we've been spending a lot of time. I don't know if you followed this, but you and I have been spending a lot of time thinking about just this big, not Bitcoin mining, so to speak, but altcoin mining. Right.
Right.
We're working on a little Saya. We've been doing Nice Hash, which is, it's got some Equihash and it's got some other things in it. We've been doing this pool mining with GRC, which works with the Boink kind of service. So you can do protein folding, and you can do World Community Grid, and you can do SETI, and you can do any of those that are part of the Boink, kind of that Boink family that allows you to mine for those. I don't know. Did you see Dave McCabe bought a GPU so he could do some mining too?
I heard about it on the show that he did it. Is it going well for him? Have you checked in with him?
I haven't checked in with him yet to see how it's going. I think he wants. It is.
He's gonna end up with more than one. Like, there's no way you can buy one and stay with one. There's no way.
I came down here the other morning. It was super warm down here. We had turned off all the air in the house because it's in Nebraska right now. It's in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where you don't really need to run air or heat.
Right. Yep.
Right. And so it's just,
if you have one on, it never really even turns on because it just stays in that temperature. Yep.
Yeah. So the house was kind of stagnant. We should have turned on the fan at that point, but we didn't. So I came down, it was kind of hot, and I just have 2 cards going, but you're right. It can be one of those things that gets going. Let's update on your rigs really quick, because you bought a bunch of cards, and we won't get, for the regular listeners, we won't get too nerdy on this, but tell us what you're up to. And then you've been monitoring them from a distance. Like, you leave for 4 days and have to come back. How have you been doing that? So quick little update from you.
Yeah, so I started out with 1 card. I kind of built this little side machine, and the way I kind of built it was this kind of a hybrid open case and closed case. So I took a really cheap $15 case off Amazon, put the the motherboard, everything in there, the hard drive, and I actually just drilled a hole in the side of the case and ran all the power cables and data cables out. And now I have 4 graphics cards because I wanted this to be sitting in my server rack. So this was kind of the best build I could do, so that it would fit nicely in the server rack. And so I grabbed 4 AMD 480s, which RX 480s, which are kind of a good card. They have great efficiency, so power efficient, and a pretty good hash rate at the same time. So it's kind of like it's a good sweet spot card. Just like on your side, yours is the NVIDIA sweet spot, and this is kind of on the AMD side, the AMD sweet spot. So I got 4 of those running in this rig. And it does get really hot. Like, I keep pointing over here because it's actually right over here. I can hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's a little bit noisy. The fans run quite a bit on it, and it actually keeps the area right around there very warm. This basement is usually freezing, and I've noticed the temperature is a little bit higher now that we've been doing that. But yeah, running that and running nice hash with it. So using the nice hash.
What kind of returns are you seeing on a daily average? You usually, after you run this for a while, you get kind of a feel of what it's like daily. What do you see?
It fluctuates. It'll be, I think my average is about $4.90 a day. So it'll go sometimes down to $4.50, and sometimes it'll be up at $5.50, $5.40. So it's looking about right now that I'm getting $130 a month. So my next payout tomorrow for 2 weeks is $75. So tomorrow is like my payout, and that's every 2 weeks. So that's 75. So, 100, sometimes it'll be probably between 125 and $150.
So is your plan to leave it? I assume, are you moving that to Coinbase, or are you just keeping it in the nice hash?
Yeah, no, it sends it straight to Coinbase.
Oh, okay.
Yep, sends it straight to my Coinbase account. I don't have it tracked through or going to neither a wallet. It was just easier for me that way. They do take a little bit more of a fee out, and just like an extra percentage or something, which for me, it just saves an extra transfer, makes it easy.
Which is pretty small. And then
very small.
You already own Bitcoin. You'd made a pretty good investment back in the day. By the way, as we record this, this is just ridiculous. $5,432 a Bitcoin right now. I mean, that's the first time I've really seen the 5,000 sustained. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous what that is. But you heeded Edward's advice. You bought.
I think I bought back at like 2,200 or something like that.
Yeah, which we all thought was crazy.
Yeah,
right?
We all thought that was nuts.
I thought it was like 1,300.
More than doubled. Yeah, I think it might have been 13. I don't know. I can't remember what it was. But
and so you've made all that money back.
Yeah.
Right, you've pulled some of it out to buy.
I pulled the original investment back out, put that back into the savings account. So now this is all just fun money in here, and it just keeps growing, and I'm loving it. So for me now, all this stuff in here, I have no fear about it. It's not like, oh, should I sell now? I don't worry about it because it's all profit. I already took out what I originally put in, so now it's just watching it for fun.
Once again, Mike Wieger does the right thing. Jim doesn't.
You didn't heed, the advice.
Oh, you Mike Wieger. Yeah, it's all right. And so, you've done pretty well with it. You're not retiring at this point.
No.
You could have.
Oh, if I had put more money in, no, couldn't have retired, but could have
No,
done a decent
double
job of
does not
things.
get you to retirement, but
Nope.
it has been interesting. I have learned, Mike, I got to tell you, through this whole exercise, and I have learned a ton about video cards and video card technology.
Yep.
I've learned a ton about virtual reality through it, because every time it comes up, it always goes from Bitcoin to VR, and it's like, oh, hey, but we can use these cards, and are you using them in headsets? And there's a whole bunch of new headsets coming out with it. And it's just, I don't know. It's been interesting to me. We've looked at Saya, which I think is actually the cheapest coin right now. I think of all the altcoins, I think it's
even
the
cheaper than
absolute
GRC,
cheapest.
which is hard to do.
Right. And GRC maybe is a penny, two
Three.
cents,
Three
three, somewhere in there. Yeah, it just depends on the price during the day. It may have gone back up a little bit. They were all dropping pretty hard a week ago.
Oh,
or so.
okay. So maybe it's gone down.
Well, who knows? I don't really think of it that way. GRC, for those listening, GRC is the coin that supports the Boink, the kind of the SETI, those kinds of things. And it's just been, for me, it's kept me in the blockchain world. And so Vint Cerf was on campus this week, and one of his topics was Bitcoin and the blockchain. And so I missed it, but it was good. As soon as I got there, I started getting texts from my coworkers. They're like, you can ask Vint about the blockchain, because they know,
right.
They know now I've been talking about this for a while. And but it's just given me a little bit of context and conversation. I think the blockchain is going to be an important part of what we do with technology. Maybe not around Bitcoin. I think that's a bubble that could burst easily. But there's these 60 altcoins that are out there, and everybody's thinking of different ways to figure out how to use these for transaction and value. And
and that's the big part, I think, too. I think you nailed it on the head. So for me, I mean, the cryptocurrency is cool, fun. It kind of provides context for the blockchain. But the blockchain has really been the one thing I've been focusing on, especially because at KPMG, it's something that we're really starting to focus on. And I think a lot of our clients are asking us questions on it. I mean, this is a big part that all the big industries are now starting to finally realize that this is like the, I mean, people are equating it to like the .com era, whereas like this is a brand new technology that's going to radically change things. And the faster we jump on with it, kind of the better. But everyone's also heeding the warnings of the blockchain. Just because you have this tool doesn't mean it doesn't, you don't have to apply it to everything. Like, it's very useful at certain things, but this is not a one size fits all. Replace all your databases with blockchain. It will be fantastic for certain applications. So yeah, for me, it's been kind of the context. It keeps me in the game. And then, I mean, I have just gone down the rabbit hole with blockchain. I mean, I've listened to this podcast on every drive, and I spend 10 hours in the car each week driving to and from Kansas. And I've probably consumed 60 or 70 hours worth of just blockchain stuff. And I try to avoid the strictly cryptocurrency ones, because that's not really my interest. I want to know, okay, what are businesses doing with the blockchain? And I think for you and me too, Jim, I mean, you and I just like new, like, I don't know if you call it a hobby or like a rabbit hole, or we just like to go, and we just dive in, and we just keep learning about it and going about it until we've pretty much exhausted, like, okay, now I'm kind of bored of that. Now I'll move on to the next thing. Yeah. But this one has kind of kept our interest for a while. You and I kind of go down these little paths together.
I think by the time general adoption is in place, right? As the average guy starts adopting it, we're kind of like,
yeah, right.
Old news, kind of thing. I would equate this. I wouldn't even equate this to the original.com. This is Windows 95. Like, people are excited about it. It's working, but it's still untested. And think of all the security flaws and all the problems with Windows 95 and Windows 98 and Windows ME and Windows 2000 in those days. And I know a lot, I know you, the listener who's listening right now, chances are you lived that through with me, and you remember those days. I think the blockchain is like that today. It's completely untested. There's lots of question marks with it. Its value is still kind of like, okay, we're not really sure. We know we can use this. We're not really sure how we're going to use it. And so I think we're just early.
Yeah, well, I think there are different concerns, though, right? So with Windows 95, it was security issues, stability issues, things like that. Whereas with the blockchain, I mean, the one thing we do know about it is how secure it is. Like, the one thing that we know for sure is that it is secure. Okay, so now what areas of our businesses does this apply well to? I mean, obviously we know the general ledger, that's what it is. Do we start to, I mean, do you have a private blockchain of just your company, or is this something that you use throughout the entire, process of any sort of process chain? So where do you apply? I think the question marks here are, what is a nail? And we have this hammer, which is a blockchain. What are the nails, and what are things that, okay, no, don't hit it with that. Like, don't try it. I think we're still testing it out in that way. But I think the one thing we are for sure about is, like, it is very secure, far more secure than any other technology we've ever had to date. Not to say it's like 100% safe, but it's far more secure than any other technology.
It's slow. It is transactionally, it is
correct.
Very, very slow, right?
Yeah,
and
this
so
is not something that
crippling.
Visa is going to go use. Like, the credit card companies cannot go implement blockchain. It just wouldn't work. But you look at
so far, right? I mean, the next whiz kid may come along and create, and build upon this to create a faster system, a transactional system. I think of when, we mentioned Vint Cerf earlier. I think about 1976 when he created, when he was on the team and created the internet, and he has said, the IPv4 had billions of addresses, and we thought it'd be plenty,
right?
Not until the late 90s did they start doing the math, carry the one, oh crap, like this isn't going to be enough, right? And so I think we're in the very early iterations of the blockchain, and I just think we're going to see some new implementations of it that will address some of those issues of speed and size. And today the blockchain has to be mined. And so you have to build out the blockchain, and is that economically efficient in all cases, right?
Right.
And are there going to be other ways to do it? We've seen ASIC miners rise up, especially on Bitcoin because of the value in it. Will that be the next way? Are they all going to be just dedicated miners? Will we see a new generation of hardware come out just because of the blockchain, right? And, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be blockchain-enabled, servers that are almost just servers dedicated to that, especially because, for a company, if you have a private blockchain, you don't need millions of nodes. You could have 5 or 6. I mean, depending on what your level of risk is and what your risk appetite is, you could go with a very low number. Obviously, you need more than 3. But beyond that, you can have as many nodes as you think is secure enough for you. But yeah, it's going to be... It's going to be very, very interesting going forward as companies start to deal with it. NASDAQ is coming out with their own solution to help these big companies implement the blockchain. And so you start to see these Microsoft, and then you've got obviously the big 4 that are jumping in to help consult on top of these. We will, implementation, how do you use this? How do we audit it? All those sort of questions, and more customers, surprisingly, and it's in a lot of industries that I never would have thought they would have asked the question, hey, we've heard about this blockchain thing. Would that be useful for us? Is that something we should look into? And then you have to have a very long conversation with them, because it's still kind of one of those technologies, like you said, where it's like a lot of the big people in the room don't really get it. Why would we use blockchain? What is it? Like you said, it's not very fast. There's a lot of things we got to talk about. So it's a very complex conversation to have right now.
Yeah. From a gadget standpoint, we do see there's been some talk of getting these miners down to the point where phones can mine, and so, that adds a new piece to it of when you plug your phone in at night, are you going to be able to turn that on and let it do some computational, and it's just changing. What's interesting is it's forcing the hardware to change. So as we think about these video cards now, and the video card industry is being very, very cautious about how much R&D it puts in and new cards it puts out. But, what's the other buzzword these days? AI and machine learning. Yeah. And both of those technologies are very dependent on the same GPU processing that's being done in mining. And I really think the mining industry, what's driving us crazy right now, is actually can and will push forward some advancements with the processing we need for really deep machine learning. And so I think in the end, it'll be great that we've had this kind of motivation move the industry. in a way that will make our computation, this will fade eventually. The blockchain will just become a thing people do, right? This is the wild, wild west. Literally people out panning for gold, right? Literally. Yeah. I don't think that's going to last all that long.
No, and it won't. And the blockchain, the difference between this and the .com era too is that the customer will not notice anything different. The everyday person will never know that they actually, it'll only be us that will know about the blockchain even going forward. I mean, other people might hear the buzzword like database. Okay, you ask a person on the street, they might be able to tell you what a database is. They might be able to say, okay, blockchain, something like that. But to the average customer, nothing's going to change. So this is not going to be some groundbreaking, the whole world all of a sudden realize like, oh my gosh, I can go online now. No, it's like not one of those revelations. So it's going to be a very, under the hood improvement. Yeah. Which I think is actually good because we have this mining industry, which has garnered a bunch of interest in it. But it's not something that needs to reach like this mass scale. Like you don't need to impress all your users with blockchain, but it gets interest in the technology, which moves it along, which gets people talking about it. And I think the implementation will happen faster because of the mining industry, right? Everyone's got kind of skin in the game. You give people skin in the game, and all of a sudden they're very interested in it. It's kind of the reason behind the ICOs when people are doing these initial coin offerings and they're offering these coins and people are buying these coins or mining these coins in these new projects. Think of Saya as an example. You've now given these everyday people, they're almost like your investors and they've got skin in the game and they're very interested in your product that you're making. And you no longer have just like a community as in like a forums or whatever a traditional community used to be that was excited about a new product. Like if you think about Madden, when the new Madden 18 comes out, or the new Call of Duty, you have a community around that's excited, but now you have interest where people actually have skin in the game. They've either invested money, they've invested computing resources, whatever it is. Yeah. So the whole mining industry, you're right. It's going to change, I think, over the next few years. I don't think it's going to last, especially because ASICs are going to become the new standard, and those are expensive. And there's going to be a big barrier to entry, which is going to be
expensive for now, though. Expensive for now, right? I mean, they may not always be expensive. And
but once they come down in cost, they won't be profitable to mine, I think. Right. You know what I mean? So where it's profitable now to mine, they're expensive. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting also, that technology will bleed its way into virtual reality for sure. Yeah. So I think we're going to see some of the advancements that's being pushed forward because there's money in it, right? Anytime there's money in these businesses, it pushes, the technology can move along a lot faster. And so I think we'll see VR, the VR headsets that come out this Christmas. By 2 years from now, we'll be wondering like how the heck did we ever put up with those? They're going to be so much better. And then gaming, of course, will be better. I think we're going to see it will push the game box, the game boxes, the PlayStations, the Xbox. It'll push those or give those the ability to go even faster and provide even better graphics. So it's interesting whenever we talk about this, I know I get the listener who's like, God, stop talking about Bitcoin. But it has such a long arm, in a long reach at this point in what the industries it's affecting, and it's all in the gadget space. I mean, think about the new iPhone, right? That's coming out. It's got this new, virtual reality stuff with it, and that's a super fast chip, and all that technology, a lot of that technology is being driven and is being advanced by what we're seeing in the machine learning, AI, and mining space. And there's lots of money in it.
Yeah, totally. So, and it's just like you said, it has the long arm into a bunch of different industries. And I think that, hopefully we just talked about maybe more of the blockchain uses rather than we didn't focus too much on the cryptocurrency side. Yeah. But man, I mean, this is one of those topics where you could talk about it forever. It's just, it touches everything, and it's going to have a different effect on a lot of different businesses.
Mike, I think the other piece, and we at the Home Server Show, we talked about this last week, Home Server Show a couple of weeks ago, drone usage. And I am this close to getting a drone. I mean, just today I was driving to work and I'm like, all right, I'm buying one. And so I've kind of got bit by that. How's the work going for you? You started a company around filming, how's that going?
It's going pretty good, actually. A lot of uptick. I don't know if houses sell more during this time of year, but got one of the people that I already did work for, and they want, they own they kind of own this like contractor type subdivision type, it's a really odd business model, but basically he's got 30 roofs of houses in a subdivision that he wants a video of every single roof because they're all different, and he wants to show his customers what the different roofing options are. And then just a lot of different people around real estate that are actually really getting into it. I think people are seeing the videos on Facebook. A lot of the realtors are posting now like the drone videos, and I think all the other realtors are now trying to play catch up, but they don't have a drone. So now they're quickly trying to find who has a drone, who can I charge for this kind of service. So yeah, not much actually has like changed, and on our end, still using the same drones and still doing the same business, but it's actually growing, which is kind of fun. I think people are getting more and more into it.
How much? When Vint was talking with us the other day, he was talking about like this disaster in Puerto Rico. And of course, it wiped out the cell towers. The roads became unpassable. People couldn't charge their phones, but Google came in with, Google's got these big balloons that they can put up and provide kind of cell and Wi-Fi service with these balloons. And they run them through the jet stream. And they've actually, what's really cool is they're all kind of computer controlled. And they calculate, so they'll say, okay, we want you to cover this kind of area. So the balloon starts looking at the weather. It calculates how fast it can get to the spot where it needs to start. Then it will find the prevailing winds to slow itself down. So where can I drag? Where can I get the most drag from so I can stay right in this area of service? And then eventually when I get out of the service, how can I quickly get back into that service? Whether it's going up, finding another jet stream to bring it back around and loop it around, or do I need to go around the planet again kind of deal? And I thought, man, that is really cool. And then I thought, wait a minute, why couldn't we be doing this with drones where we send them up, they glide in the jet stream, right? And they have solar panels on the top. They recharge while they're gliding. Then when they've gone over their service area, they turn, make an efficient, coming back, and then just keep doing this circling, like the birds do. They just make this. I mean,
it's just harder to keep those up in the air.
Yeah, they're a little heavier. Yeah,
they're a little heavier, and as soon as they stop spinning, they fall. Whereas the balloon kind of just.
Well, yeah, but I think there's some with advancements we're making in drones and lighter materials and some of those things. I think there could be a day. How long? Okay, you send your drone up. How long can that stay in the air on a current battery charge?
25-30 minutes.
Okay, and then how long does it take to charge that battery when you bring it back down?
A lot.
Like 2-3 hours?
3-4 hours.
So
three hours, I'd say 3 hours.
If I had 10 drones, in theory, I could keep one drone in the air at all times flying while the others are charging, right?
Oh, if you had 10 batteries?
Yeah, if I had 10 drones.
Yeah.
Or a way to quickly switch those batteries. This was just thinking like, hey, what if you have these inexpensive drones? And you get the equipment to be able to do the repeater, the cell phone repeater kind of stuff in those things. And then they just constantly, they shoot up and hover for 25 minutes. And before one comes down, the next one comes up. Right. And you're just constantly sending these swarms of drones to provide these mesh networks.
I think that'd be interesting. I think it could totally work.
If we could get that battery charging time faster. And
or like you said, if they're small enough that solar could keep up, right? Like if you got those motors using as little amount of power as possible, whereas solar could do an okay job at keeping up. That'd be hard to do, but
well, or even if solar could augment to the thing. So if it could keep it up, 10 minutes longer, so to speak, you could have a fleet of these drones repeating this process of taking off. What got me thinking of this is as I was watching Dave McCabe catch this drone with his hand.
Yeah.
It came
Which
down.
one does he have? Do you know?
He's coming on in a couple weeks. He's going to be on the 9th.
Okay.
And the three of us are going to talk drones. We're going to do an all drone
Is it
show.
Small, very small.
Mm-hmm.
DJI Spark, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get Keith Lunsford on as well. But Keith had a bigger one that we were flying around at the meetup. But, a couple of the things. One is, as he sent them up, they were very, very stable. Like it was windy. And the software has gotten really, really good. I was also thinking, like, even at my house, when for security reasons, I could have 3 or 4 drones in a battery, landed in their batteries waiting to go. And if the front cameras detect something, those drones could take off and begin to film right from above.
Now, that would be pretty cool.
And you don't need to. I mean, they wouldn't need they can fly up and down and stay. The software will keep them stable.
Right. Oh, the software is fantastic. Yeah.
So I was thinking wouldn't that be kind of a cool application? Is you're not flying them all the time, but when the cameras
scare them off too. They're like, oh, geez.
Yeah, when the cameras, it's going back to that robot lawnmower that's just always mowing the lawn. If you've got a couple drones that are always being charged, you can have one on the ready at any given time, right?
Yeah.
That it senses motion and it just takes off into the sky. Camera's pointing down at the house. You get some pretty good coverage, and it could lock on one person. Yeah.
They're running away, and this drone's just chasing them.
How cool would that be?
Yeah, put some buckshot in there, Just
and there's legal ramifications of that and flying over people.
Oh, trust me, I'm a lawyer. There's no legal ramifications for that. I should say officially that there is.
There is.
I don't know if I should joke about that.
I was waiting for you to correct that. No, it just, for me, it got me thinking as we were watching these drones do their thing, and it's cool to race them around, and it's really cool to. But I was talking with some folks at Union Pacific, and I've been talking to some folks who do building construction, and they're using these drones more and more. Like at Union Pacific, you just send them out with a train. Yeah. And they can, on a moment's notice, they can take off the train and survey and see what's going on. And I mean, there's just so many really cool applications now where 2 years ago we were crashing them all over the place.
Yeah. They weren't safe enough, right? There was not that safety standard, and they weren't steady enough. The cameras weren't good enough. Even your auditors now are using them for inventory. So something at UP, inventory of trains in a big stockyard, you can do that much quicker with a drone than you can sending someone physically out there to watch them. And then agriculture too. Farmers are loving sitting on their back porch and monitoring the fields, and they have this really advanced actual ag app that works with DJI. Does all sorts of analytics on the field using the camera, and you on the GPS draw out where your field is, and all you say is go, and the application does the flight path for your drone so that it can perfectly do all this sort of stuff. CAD drawings, 3D of renderings, like you said, of construction. I mean, there's just, with how good the drones are getting now, it's insane.
Yeah.
The amount of opportunities you have with them.
Yeah. No, that was just one of those things. As I was driving to work the other day, I'm like, holy crap, we could be doing way more with these drones than. It's great to fly them around, but there's some great security things that we could do with them. I'd love to have a few that are just parked on my deck. Yeah. And again, when that front door thing goes off, that just takes off and it's going to hover, at 200 feet above my house, and it's going to start filming what's going on, right? Another level of security that I really can't get.
It's a really good idea. I want to try that now.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out.
It's an if this then that. If your video camera triggers an event, then send the drone up, and then that drone would have a programmed thing, right? And it would notify you, hey, I'm in the air. What do you want to see?
And my cameras do work with if then that. Or if this, then that.
Yeah. Can you could you just take over the drone? Could you fly it from your phone? Say, can the drone send you a note and say, I'm in the air? No. Nope. Could you just take it over? So we got a ways to go.
Oh, we do have a ways to go. Right now, it wouldn't be, you have to use the actual DJI app. They did a lot of new rules actually with their app that you actually have to use the DJI official app, or it is severely limited to like 50 feet from you and only like 75 feet in the air. So DJI wants you to use their app so it can log everything, and they changed up those rules.
Well, you get some great data on them. I watched Dave do it, Dave McCabe. I watched him do his stuff, and then we were talking about it offline, and I was just like, wow, I need to get, like I'm doing Bitcoin, or thinking about the blockchain. I need to have a drone in my hands. Yeah. And
just cash out all that money you put into Bitcoin. Oh, you didn't. You didn't invest when we all did and didn't make it.
I hate you, Mike Wieger. You Mike Wieger.
Just had to rub salt in the wound just a little bit more.
No, it's good. That's what you're good for. It's good to have you back. But
Right.
I'm glad you're going to be gone next week.
Yeah, get back out of here. Actually, Mike, we're closing you down for November. We don't need a co-host.
We're good. We're good.
You can stay home.
I've done without you this long. Well, there's some super interesting applications, that I was just like, why couldn't we be using some of these in this takeoff mode? Right. And then why couldn't I have 2 or 3? And you think that I could get, a good average drone now, Mike, is what am I spending if I wanted to get a pretty decent rig? Not the most expensive. I'm not going to
$1,500.
Okay. So that's half the price of the robot lawnmower, to be honest, and more fun.
And way more fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I could imagine having 1 or 2 of those sitting in a container on the deck. It's closed up and protected. And then when that event happens, lid pops open. Just
the mailman hates coming to your house now. Every time I go over there, these drones come out.
Could you just imagine? Because they'd be in the back, and then all of a sudden a drone shoot up in the air. How weird would that be? That would be weird. But
it'd be pretty funny to watch, though, on the video camera.
Kevin Schoonover in the chat room says county police are using infrared cameras on drones to look for marijuana plants between corn rows.
It must have been him. Someone sent me that article. Yeah, they're actually, because these farmers are hiding it in like the corner of their fields. And actually, a lot of times it's not even the farmers. It's like people who have come onto the farmer's land and planted this in the back corner of their field. And the cops show up and the farmer has no idea it's even out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some really cool technology. I think drones we're now like in 2.0, drone 2.0. Where it's really mature and there's some really good stuff, and you're paying.
You see, the price is coming down.
Yeah,
I mean, for what you're getting now, you would have paid an insane amount for before. I mean, the DJI Phantom 4 Pro, the next model up from what I have, I mean, you're getting sensors on all 4 sides. You're getting a much better camera, better battery life, and you're getting a ton more, and for your money. And it's essentially the same price as that was back when it came out. So you were starting to see these advances where you're getting a lot more stuff, a lot more bang for your buck. In the drone world.
Yeah, I think now is the time. If you've been holding off, I think now is the time to jump in on drones. Speaking of the home server show, I got to thank Kevin Schoonover. He let me walk away with some of his gear when we left. He gave me this ITX board that has an AMD. Kevin, I don't know what I couldn't even tell you what the processor is on it, but it's a fairly decent one, fairly energy efficient. I need to throw the Belkin. I'm going to throw the Belkin box on it here eventually, but I loaded it up. Dave was giving away the IC dock, some IC dock, fittings. I don't know what to call them, but he gave me one where you can put 4 2.5-inch drives, laptop drives, in one 3.5-inch bay. So it stacks them up really nice. Just plastic, snap them in. Not terribly expensive. I think they're $10 at Amazon, so not terribly expensive. IC dock, ICY DOCK. If you
of them in one 3.5-inch.
Yeah, you can get 4 laptop drives or 4 2.5-inch drives in one 3.5-inch bay.
Okay.
Really, really cool. It doesn't do any RAID or anything. It's just they snap in and they're there.
Right, just a holder for it. Yeah.
It's a $10 bracket, right, for that. So took Kevin's board. By the way, this had been my old PF Sense box that had just stopped working, and I didn't know if it was the power supply or the motherboard, and I never had another ITX board to plug that stuff into to determine. So getting Kevin's board, brought it home, set it up, plugged it in, put all 4 drives in, spun the thing up, and put 16 gig of RAM in it, which was really, really cool. And boom, I have now a brand new VM box, which I can now run. So I put Windows 10 on it, and I have 3 VMs of Windows 10. So fast ring, slow ring, release. Never really been able to do that in any of the equipment I had here. Just didn't work because I didn't have enough RAM. Right. I always put 8. I'd put, I'd always kind of capped it at 8, and that's really stupid. I should have put the max. By the way, if you're ever building the PC, put the max amount of RAM in there.
Well, especially if you're running VMs, where you're going to have to dedicate that RAM to a VM.
No, right on. And so I could run with 16. I could get 4 for the OS and then 4 for each Windows instance. So, Kevin, thanks for your generosity at Home Server Show. Kevin might be one of the most generous guys, Mike, that I've ever met. He's just
shipped me stuff before.
Yeah.
Yeah, he showed me a bunch of. I think it was server rack stuff, server rack hardware.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love this community. I mean, it's just pretty awesome. Kevin, check your Gmail too, by the way, if you would. Little thank you in there in your Gmail. But really, really cool to throw that in that shuttle case. And so the whole thing is in a case. It's only this big. I mean, it's not very big at all.
Oh,
4
really?
drives. Yeah, and then Mike, I took
saw a picture. It looked big. I thought it
No.
looked big.
No, it's a shuttle case. So,
Gotcha.
maybe that big, that wide. It's in a tiny space.
Just the size of that ATX board then.
Yeah, basically. And then power supply. So,
Okay.
an ATX board's about that big, right?
Right.
And then power supply next to it. So it's the length of that. Jam those 4 drives in. One of the cool things I was able to do is give each one of those VMs its own dedicated drive in there.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, so it worked out pretty nice, and it was pretty cool to have that availability. I've always kind of wanted a VM box, and this was perfect for it, and so just allowed me to get that set up. Kevin, I'm assuming that AMD chip is fairly efficient in what it does. It's not running very hot, and we're having a good time with it. So Kevin, thanks for your generosity, and for me, kind of nice to have a dedicated VM box that's not huge, and we'll get I did run out. I am officially out of network ports here at the house, so I filled up 2 12 port switches. They're dumb switches. They don't have any smarts in them, but yeah, so the Moro data box is now networkless at the moment, although I think it might have Wi-Fi in it. It's one of those Nooks, so I should probably just connect it to the Wi-Fi. But yeah, I'm out 12. So Kevin, thanks for your stuff, and I appreciate it. Mike, we missed you. I think next year though, they may have talked me into hosting the meetup in Omaha.
My ears perked up in the last podcast. I heard you say, I was like, oh, Omaha meetup? Like, all right.
What do you think?
I could be on board for that. I think I could definitely make that one. I mean, when you put it in my backyard, literally, we could have it in my backyard. I mean, I'm just.
Well, maybe we'd have to have, Dave always does the HQ, tour. You're way out west, and I'm thinking of doing it here in Midtown or whatever. But
that's fine.
We'll have to get together and a little Home Gadget Geeks meetup is what we'll do. And I've got some ideas, so we'll start thinking about it. I will, if you're a regular listener, I will probably do some kind of Patreon executive producer. Emily, thank you for it. I hope I can steal that idea from you, Emily. She for the story behind. She has this executive producer level on Patreon, and those are the people who really care about what's going on. And so we may open up a level that's $5. Just need enough people to commit to it, so I know we've got some bodies that are coming, and then we'll start working on some vendors and vendor sponsorship and some of those kinds of things. So, you in, Mike? Can you?
I am definitely in. I want to help plan it. I want to be part of it. I'm going to be there. Yeah, I actually really wanted to go this year too. I was sad I didn't get to go because I was like, I knew it was going to be the last one there for a while.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I wish you could have come with us.
I know.
It was the best. It was the best one. We talked a bunch about it last week, but it was the best. All right, we have an interview with Dave Crawford. Dave Crawford is a tech evangelist and doing a lot of cool things at Microsoft. I am going to actually play this in. It won't be available in the live show. So for those of you who are listening live, you'll have to go back to the recorded version. I'm going to put this in the produced version. Interview I did with Dave. You don't necessarily need the video for this one because it was just an interview we did at Heartland Developer Conference a couple weeks ago. A really good one. And we talk about some of the same things Mike and I just talked about here, but we get Dave's opinion on it. So I'll roll that, and we'll be back here in just a few minutes. Jim Collison, we're live again at Heartland Developer Conference 2017. I think we're in our 4th year of doing webcasts out here, a little bonus content. I'm here with Dave Crawford from Microsoft. Dave, welcome to the Heartland Developer Conference.
Thanks for having me.
You were the session keynote this morning, Thursday morning, first keynote, big deal.
Yes.
Congratulations on it. How did it go?
I think it went well. There was, my humor sometimes stops people, but I think I got a couple of chuckles. So
well, and you have that accent. Where are you from originally?
I'm from England. In fact, you're a Game of Thrones watcher?
No. I should be though. Okay. I might be the only guy on the planet.
I think you might be.
Probably.
It's the new I'm vegan, isn't it? I've not seen Game of Thrones. Yeah. So I'm from the north of England. I'm from a place called York.
Okay.
And it's basically not Westeros, Winterfell. If you watch Game of Thrones.
Sure.
So yeah, I have my accent. That's where I'm from.
It's great. Yeah. No, it for whatever reason Americans love the British accent. I think they think it's smarter. And I think we're going to find out today.
Well, I hope it is. I mean,
Dave, it probably
I
is.
don't think I'm necessarily going to tick all those boxes. But I'll try.
You'll do fine. Or people will have Game of Thrones flashbacks
Yes.
as they're hearing you do this. Hey, let's get to know you a little bit. Give us just a little bit of your bio, your background with Microsoft, what you do for them.
Sure. So I've been at Microsoft now for almost 10 years. I spent the first 6 years about in the UK in Microsoft Consulting Services, which is the professional services arm of the company. And during that time, I worked with all kinds of companies, big and small, and in all kinds of different industries, and helping them from a UX and design perspective get on board with Microsoft technologies and solve the problems that they have. And a few years just before I moved to the US, so it's probably around about, I don't know, 2010 or something like that, a small group of us pitched this piece of work internally to help the marketing team launch Windows Phone. And we kind of ran our little team like a startup where money was coming from the Windows marketing team. And we grew it into a service where any major app that was coming through the review system, if it was from a major partner across the world, like the Contact in Russia or Sina Weibo in China or Facebook in the US, they'll come through our team for quality reviews. So they come through for a technical review and a UX review, and to help them out and respond with that kind of stuff. And that kind of evolved into a service where we actually start to build and design a lot of the flagship apps on Windows and Windows Phone. So I'm very lucky to have worked with like building Spotify and Facebook and PayPal and big names like that, which I wouldn't really get to do at many other places.
Yeah.
So although I am a Microsoft employee and I have been for a very long time, I don't actually build Microsoft products. I build other people's products.
Yeah, the ecosystem apps, right? The apps that get people in those. Windows Phone, of course, has not been the launch that we were hoping for, but a lot of things have moved on with Windows 10 and kind of the universal system that's coming out. How's that coming internally? I mean, so what are you doing now? And I know Microsoft's making a big emphasis on the store in Windows 10 as we think of Windows 10s coming. We're trying to keep things in the store. How's that going?
For that. I'm good. I've recently switched focus now that I'm in Windows. So now I work a lot with flagship apps coming to the platform. So apps like Adobe XD, which is a full UWP app, which has been brought over which has been dealt actually from scratch for Windows. And I don't know if you're aware of iTunes coming to
I heard that.
Store. So it's actually my project.
I heard that. Yeah, that and Chrome, I think, are what need to come before we can really be there. Yeah, Chrome will be hard.
Chrome will be hard, but that Apple project is, I've been running that project for about a year and a bit now. I'm very lucky to have a fantastic team who I work with. So I focus on those.
Will that get optimized? Today, the iTunes app on Windows is a pretty terrible experience. The x86 app. In this process of rewriting it for the store, will it get better, just a little more efficient? Maybe will you guys be able to do some UX, UI stuff to make it better?
As you may be aware,
did I just
these are
ask
difficult
you a question?
questions? Apple are very good at what they do, and as you know, they are quite secretive about what they do.
Sure.
I don't actually know.
Fair enough.
The improvements that they're making. All I know is that they are
good. Well, it's good to see it's coming. It's good to see it's coming. It's tough to have a store without iTunes.
Totally,
and so good to hear it's coming. What else?
So I also work a lot with new devices. So as we have new devices coming through our development testing process, I partner with our device teams to find partners who have great experiences that would gel well with the new devices that we're making. So for example, for Surface Studio and Surface Dial, I worked with a bunch of different partners on bringing their experiences for launch. So Moho, for example, is a great professional grade animation package. So working with those guys and seeing how we can build new UI and how we can build these new experiences into their existing pro level app was fascinating. And this is something I do on an ongoing basis with new devices that come down the line. Unfortunately, I can't talk too much about new devices.
Sure.
But yeah, I also get to build some apps of my own every now and then. My team is responsible for the Windows section of the build keynote, so we actually build the demos and write the scripts for our execs. So that's fun as well, getting to go on stage. Well, seeing your work on stage at least.
Before we started talking, you're kind of a self-professed gadget guy.
Yes.
And so, of course, in the last couple of years, Microsoft's gotten very into gadgets, which has been great, right? You mentioned the Studio and the Dial.
Yeah.
Do you get to interact with those? So is part of your job, do you get to interact with the hardware
yes.
as much? So
well, that's the thing.
Good for you,
with new
right?
devices, you have to. So It's we have a process that I don't know how much I'm showing that I shouldn't be showing here, but we have a process called tenting, which is getting brought into like the secret new upcoming projects. I'm very lucky that I actually get to get tented on stuff relatively early. So yeah, with the Surface Studio, for example, I mean, I still have a prototype on my desk that I still use. I don't get a production one, but I have this really cool prototype, and it's fun to work with it. And also being a creative professional, having something like the studio and the dial with great pen support as well makes my workflow so much faster. And I can really, I'm genuine when I talk to other designers about the effects it can have on your workflow, because I've lived through them myself.
And do you get a chance to use the Surface Studio very often, or is it a part of your regular workflow?
It's so I use it whenever I do any creative work. It depends. My work kind of oscillates between program management work and creative work. So for the creative work, it takes up a significant part of my workflow for that. But for the PM work, obviously, it's not an essential piece of technology for that, but it's something that I like to use whenever I can. I mean, I have a Surface Book and a studio, so I'm kind of spoiled. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd love to put one in my podcasting studio. I think Surface Studio. I'm not sure I can justify the expense.
But it's so beautiful.
It is great piece of hardware. Great piece of hardware. On Home Gadget Geeks, we spent some time talking about augmented, virtual, and reality devices. And of course, you don't have to say anything secret. There's a bunch of them, HoloLens, and then there's a bunch of new devices coming out by other vendors as well as Microsoft. Have you gotten much in the mixed reality space? Have you gotten a chance to work in there?
So I've been involved in HoloLens for a long time, actually, but mainly with other partners. But recently, I've started to skill myself up on AR and MR kind of experiences. So we actually have a dedicated team within my department who focus on MR and VR with third parties. I'm trying to skill myself up in just asset creation right now. So I'm going through the motions of learning Maya, which is not easy. It's very powerful, but it's not an easy thing to learn. But I'm trying to learn how to do that so that I can better support the people that I work with, and also for demos or for work with partners. So I can be like, well, here's how you build these assets that work well on MR devices. Or that kind of
well, and I'd love to see the price point come down. So we're pushing down price points a little bit
with the new headsets that are coming out, starting at $399, and the thing I love, sorry, I'm a little bit of a promo right now.
That's great.
The thing I love about these headsets is that they are world tracking. So you're not restricted to having things on sticks and camera setups, and you can put them on in any room and it will scan the room just like HoloLens does. It's the same technologies that power HoloLens. And I'm just super excited that they're below $500, which is crazy.
So our last Home Gadget Geeks, we interviewed Dwayne Robinson. He is he's on the car. He's on the auto team there, right? They're the embedded vehicle, right? That's what they're doing. And we went through kind of the VR setups, and he showed the headsets. We also spent a lot of time talking about video cards required to do this. And the other thing that's coming down is the minimum specs are coming down, it seems like. So the average consumer, if they're going to develop, that's going to be one thing. But I think we're seeing a nice drop in video cards. Of course, video cards are now competing. Mixed reality is competing with Bitcoin for high end, right? Have you gotten bitten by the Bitcoin rage that's going on right now at all?
So I kind of wish I had been bitten like a year ago.
When
Bitcoin was
you and me both. We did Home Gadget Geek shows like 2 years ago, and it was like $200, and they told me at the time to buy it, and I didn't, and it's $49,847, something like that today.
It's crazy.
Pretty ridiculous.
I would love to get involved with Bitcoin, or with my friend's a massive fan of Ethereum. He's trying to get beat. I think I've missed that now, because he was actually telling me about it like 2 weeks before the massive bubble appeared, and it's like, damn it.
Well, it's okay though. I think we're just in the early stages. There's always these moments, right? There was a huge run up in Bitcoin too when it first, and then it pulled back, and it's kind of in a bubble now. And you think of Litecoin and Ethereum, but there's a whole bunch of different altcoins out there, and there's some interesting things being done with the blockchain.
Do you know, I was actually reading something, I might have even been on the NPR podcast I was listening to the other day. They're saying that with the instabilities happening with North Korea, traditionally investors put money into the yen, but because Japan is so close to all this instability that's happening in the DPRK, they're actually putting it into blockchain currencies, which is, that is crazy. I still have I still have difficulty reconciling the fact that it's not a gold standard backed.
Right.
So I know it's not essential anymore.
And it's never been a part. It has not been a part of the U.S. We have not been gold backed for a long time. And it's I'm not. I'm never going to make $1 million off Bitcoin, but it's an interesting, I think the blockchain concept is the most interesting. And when you think about the technology and then the hardware, especially when we're talking about mixed reality now, with those coming down and the computer really getting to a spot where I think the average consumer can now afford to be in. Now, you mentioned the mixed reality headset that's coming. And I think this is a key point. I don't think people know the sensors, I think because some of the Connect work is built into the headset.
Yeah, just like HoloLens. Yeah.
I never knew with Oculus Rift, you had to have these sensors put throughout the room. Right?
And you have to like set them up and calibrate them and stuff. And like with these, you know, headset-based tracking systems, you can just, in any place you're in, you can just put it on, it's fine. You can take it to a friend's house, plug it into their machine, and it will just work with no setup. Yeah. Obviously, assuming it's a VR-capable PC, but you know, the prices are coming down, more people are getting them.
I was able to get NVIDIA 1060 VR ready. I think that's really important that people know that. Make sure if you're buying a new card, it needs to be VR ready for that.
Yep.
A whole bunch of HDMI ports so you could plug multiple pieces in. USB is going to be important too on the PCs. But that minimum requirement of that 3 gig on the card and a 1060, 225 for the card, not too bad. The high-end cards are going in then 500s and 600s because of mining right now, to be honest with you. And so I think it's coming down. What are you seeing? You're in that space. When we talk about the practical, HoloLens has been kind of a gimmick a little bit. It's kind of worked in some areas and not. You're seeing something, not asking you to disclose anything, but how do you feel about mixed reality for the future? And are you starting to see some real practical applications coming that may make its way into the enterprise?
So with HoloLens in particular, we're currently targeting enterprise. You know, it's still a reference design, all that kind of stuff. I think that there are certain applications of VR and MR technologies that appeal more to different segments, whether it's to consumer or whether it's enterprise or, you know, everything in between. Price point's obviously clearly a factor, but also practical use. I mean, with HoloLens, I mean, you do need a decent amount of space to move around in because these are world-based holograms that it produces, and I'm sure you're familiar. I guess you've used one a few times. So, like, if you're trying to play Minecraft in your living room, for example, you know, you need to have the space for it really, so that Minecraft can appear on your table and on your floor and that kind of stuff. The great thing about VR is it's all self-enclosed, and you move around just virtually. You can run it in the smallest spaces. I think we're going to see. This is my personal opinion, but I think we're going to see VR catch on much more in the consumer space initially. I think MR is going to still be in the realm of enterprise until the price point comes down, until experience gets more improved. I mean, we saw Google making similar inroads with Google Glass. I mean, it never really caught on for social reasons as well with Glass, as I'm sure you're well aware. But you know, they recently released an update of the hardware for enterprise. I mean, I think that AR still makes more sense in enterprise space. I think that consumers need a gentle introduction to AR because AR it's a different way of interacting compared to VR. So once people get used to having VR in the comfort of their own room and interacting virtually with people and with virtual objects, I think introducing MR and blending these two realities will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, you mentioned the social aspect of it not catching on, and what about the UI aspect of it? Yeah, that's your specialty.
Yeah,
and a lot of what you're thinking about. Where do you think we need to go from a UI to make it even better? And what are you hoping? Again, not disclosing anything, but what are you hoping that we'll get to make that better?
Well, this is an area that genuinely fascinates me. I mean, if you think about how UI and UX has evolved, like it's grown up really in 2D interfaces. I mean, UX is very much its infancy and command line stuff. It didn't really exist, and then as a practice, it's got much stronger over the past 20 years with two-dimensional interfaces. But it now means that the 3D space is still much of a Wild West. There's still gold to be won. There's still standards to set, and accolades to achieve. And for me, it's coming up with a consistent set of navigating virtual environments is going to be paramount to its success. I mean, already we have so many different controller styles. Well, I say so many, we have like 3 or 4 right now, but whether it's actual handheld virtual controllers that you can see, like Oculus have, or HTC have, or we have with our motion controllers, or whether it's just keyboard and mouse or Xbox controller base. So there's already so many different ways of interacting with this. To a degree, it's great. I mean, we want to have as many entry points as possible so as many people can use it with whatever hardware they have and whatever entry point. But there's going to be a crucial pivot point where one technology will take the lead. And I think we're still trying to find what that is. We're still trying to define not just the hardware that we need to interact with, but also the visual cues and the things that make sense, because we're messing with people's perception of the real world. I mean, we're literally messing with what they see and what their brain interprets and what they hear and stuff. There's so many things we have to work out, and there's a lot of research. I know that Microsoft invests a significant amount of research into MR and VR and the human factors aspect of it. So there's some names to be made, and there's also some standards to set, and it's an exciting time to be in it.
It is. I think we have a lot of work to do there. What about Cortana coming into that space and being helpful? Have you seen anything where we're beginning to do more voice, where I don't have to necessarily use my hands or use a controller? Are we seeing anything like that yet?
I think that's, well, we've seen a massive proliferation recently of voice assistants in our daily lives. Things like Siri, for example, or Google Assistant maybe might not get as much activation on phones and wearables as the manufacturers would like. However, when it comes to standalone devices that sit in your home, like Google Home or the Cortana speaker that's being produced by Harman Kardon, or obviously the Echo range of devices, we are very comfortable just talking to something in thin air. I think that we're going to see more of that happening in the VR space and the MR space. For example, right now, a significant amount of interactions you can do with HoloLens by using air tapping with your hands, you can actually do with Cortana. It still responds to, hey, Cortana, everything gets activated that way. But we're still trying to figure out what people are comfortable issuing voice commands to do, because in many interfaces, still voice commands are slower than actually just doing it yourself. Until it gets to the point where voice assistant can take a more complex language and more complex queries, which are faster than doing things manually. So there's that aspect to it as well, but probably the major stumbling block to voice interfaces for either two-dimensional, three-dimensional, i.e. non-ambient experiences, is that discoverability is a real stumbling block for them. You don't want to have like walls of information that say what you can say to something that you have to scan through anyway, which only be click to type. So, and we don't trust voice assistants yet to just understand enough context or enough unguided commands or things that are out of its kind of range of activation keywords. So I think that we need to trust voice assistants more, but in order for us to trust them more, they need to give us more value first. So I think we've seen some fantastic inroads into that with Cortana and Siri and Echo and Google Assistant, sorry, Alexa and Google Assistant. But they need to be able to do more and be more proactive, and also just be more like talking to a person. We tend to treat them a little bit differently to people, but at the minute we treat them like they're children that don't understand what we're saying half the time. And for them to be helpful to us, they kind of
are children, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
In a lot of ways.
It's kind of up to us to bring them up, I guess.
Yeah. They got a ways to grow. When you think of UX, UI, traditionally we think of that on a screen in a two-dimensional. We talked about virtual, where now we're 3D. Does voice, is voice UX and UI the same idea? Can you think of it in the same way? It's about making improvements and what people say, or is that completely different because it's all verbal commands? I don't know if you know, but I'll ask you that question. Are those two different fields of study, or is it the same concept, same ideas, just applied to voice as opposed to what we see? Well,
visual design and UX design are on a bigger spectrum of human-computer interaction, and voice interaction is definitely an aspect of that. It's a significant part of HCI these days. So yeah, it's definitely part of the UX spectrum. If you think about it, people may think that it's because there's no visual UI, then it's a super simple thing to deal with. You say something, it responds to you. But if you think about the times that you've interacted with voice assistants, and they will how you have to phrase things in a very prescriptive way, or how they don't carry context through. There are still many UX considerations you have to take into account here. For example, I can say to Google Assistant, to Alexa, for example, I can say, what's the weather like in Nebraska today? And she will tell me, but she'll tell me in Fahrenheit. So I'll say, what's that in Celsius? Because I'm obviously, European. And she'll say, I don't understand. Yeah. It's like, well, I asked you a moment ago, you need to carry context through. Assistants like Google Assistant or Cortana, for example, can carry that context through. So you can say, well, it's in Celsius, and they'll repeat the same thing. But you have to hear that whole thing again. Whereas I don't want to hear the weather today in Seattle is blah, blah, blah. I just want to hear 15 degrees. And just that kind of a level of HCI is something that's is still something that needs to be applied to voice assistants, and there's still a bunch of efforts to understand the amount of information that you need to give, and also the amount of intuition that these assistants have, and how much they can safely assume from a user without them feeling uncomfortable, and vice versa.
Yeah, I always look to Iron Man and Tony Stark, and the assistant Jarvis is, I think, a really good example where it feels like another person who cares.
Yeah.
And who's carrying on a conversation, not just one command after another.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we're getting closer to more context? And I know we have a lot of new stuff coming with Windows 10 and the Fall Creators Update. Cortana is bringing some new features. They're public. We've been testing them in the Insiders program. But do you feel like we're getting better with that, just as kind of on the outside looking?
Yeah. I think that with context in particular, I think that's one of the, I wouldn't say it's necessarily low-hanging fruit, but I'd say it's one of the essential fruit that needs to be like, I don't really want to extend this metaphor, but like needs to be on the tree. But
right.
It's until we have context, I don't think we can really go much further than that. And it's not just context as in what's the utterances that are being issued to the assistants. It's also the context in like, I'm in a car, so there's going to be lots of background noise, or like I'm in a car, so my queries are probably going to be related to driving in some way, or I'm at home, so they're probably going to be related to, timers or weather or things like that. So there's so many different aspects that they've yet to solve. I think that like the big four, big four in voice assistants at least, so Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and the fourth one that escapes me.
Yeah, I was just thinking through Siri.
That's of course.
That's small little company.
That's small voice assistant. Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson is now going to bust through.
The good thing about having 4 competing ecosystems is it's going to drive innovation. And I think that's why I have multiple voice assistants. I'm obviously a Microsoft employee, but I have multiple assistants in my home because I want to understand the differences and be able to improve our products. And a lot of that is understanding what other things do well and what they don't do well and what the opportunities are. And
well, and I love the fact that Cortana is going to start working with Alexa in the future. That's just announced. And I think because all 4 of them have really different strengths.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that to me, a friend was asking me the other day, like, which do I like better out of the voice assistants? And I say, well, the thing I love about Echo, for example, is it talks to all my home devices. It's super good at doing that. It will order me like more cat food, or it'll order me, more tea bags from Amazon, and I can track my orders and stuff. But doing anything else, I have difficulties with it. Whereas I look at Cortana or Google Assistant, and they're so good at giving me information and maintaining context. And Cortana in particular at keeping on top of my schedule and things like that. I mean, she is phenomenal. I'm using she. I'm already,
You've already ascribed human likeness to her.
Yeah. So she's so good at like being proactive. Like you need to leave for the airport and things like that. Like she's got some great proactive things. And Google Assistant is great with obviously Google Knowledge Graph at pulling those things together. But having Cortana and Alexa talking to each other, I think is, first of all, I think it's a really smart move. And second of all, I think it's going to be super powerful consumers because we're going to have all of Cortana's knowledge graph and integration to things like Office and that kind of stuff mixed in with Alexa's ability to talk to my devices and also talk to a retail giant with all those skills that they have. I think it's a really good partnership they have there, and it stops one company from trying to boil the ocean themselves. Each person takes a pail and tries to do a little bit.
Well, we think about the presence and the location services that come with Siri and Google, and it knows my movement. You mentioned context. I was before we started, I was telling you that I just started using Azure Media Services to index some audio. And it actually gives me before I kick the index off, it gives me the ability to put in some clues like, okay, what's this about? And what are some keywords I might want to look for? And what are some unusual things that I might be saying? HoloLens is what the example.
Like you do the stenographer, you give them some keywords.
Industry specific. If you're a doctor, it might be words that are hard to spell and it keeps track of those as it's doing this indexing so that if it comes across the words it doesn't really understand, it will take hints from that and be able to find them. I think when you think about virtual assistants, I think we're going to have to get to that spot where, like you mentioned, this is what tipped me off to that. I'm in a car. Chances are I'm going to be asking traveling like questions,
Yep.
gas stations,
Yep.
food, next stop, those kinds of things, emergency services that might relate to the car. By the way, we have all these fitness trackers on us now that can tell us how we're feeling and how we're doing, and if we're struggling sleeping. And, you know, I just think for people who think this is a mature market, I think there's some very, very exciting things ahead.
I mean, these are new technologies to us, just like AR and VR are. I mean, we've had them all around in kind of nascent forms for 10, 15 years. I mean, do you remember Kurzweil Voice or Dragon Dictate and stuff? Like, these technologies have been around, but they're starting to get to a point where I wouldn't say there's maturity, but like they're starting on that path. Like they've grown up from the infants and they're starting to just kind of grow up a little bit. And the same thing with VR. We've had VR experiences since the 80s, but they've been not great and not accessible.
And I think the ultimate goal is some things. I think we're still away from being where things can be predictable.
Yeah.
Why it can do the prediction for us. I know we're making some strides in that. Have you done any work or thought any about, when we think about the UX UI world, of self-healing or predictive UX UI, where the experience changes as the consumer's in it based on their habits and what they do, or try to make some predictions about, hey, I know because I have the phone and I got all this information, I know the user likes to do it this way, I'm going to change as we're on the fly. Is that being done anywhere or thought about?
So it is actually an aspect of UX. There's fields of research into that. It's adaptive UX, really.
Yeah.
It's literally adapting to the situation they're in. There's also if you boil it back down to before we could have like AI models we could train or paths that users could follow, there was stuff that could be done with statistical analysis, which I know is obviously the backbone to a lot of AI, interfaces anyway, such as, a user does this stuff more often, so like surface those results first or surface those options. But when it comes down to the even earlier aspects of it, is around like self-correcting for like error processes. So if users, were doing things wrong, then the system will recognize that it's not quite going all according to the plan, so they try and compensate for different things. And there are actually areas of thought that study this stuff. I'm not an expert, unfortunately. It's still very much in its research and kind of development phase right now. I wouldn't say it's to the point where it's being rolled out into anything mainstream. But that said, a lot of it does tie back into voice assistants. I mean, you can now imagine only be able to phrase, what's the traffic like, what's the weather like in one way. It would drive you insane. So we already have this fuzzy logic that's applied to speech recognition. So I think we're going to start to see it more in other avenues of interface. Obviously, there are areas where it's never really going to take off in terms of error correction. Things where you need to be super precise, like architecture or safety critical systems example. But what it could do is have fail safes in there that can be like, oh, you haven't done this, so you need to do this, or like So there's always going to be odd industries that stand out against it. But I think it's something we're going to start to see in the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, like you used that traffic example, and I really want it. Like, traffic's really important to me on my commute. Now, in Omaha, let's be honest, like San Francisco, like Omaha's not any of those when it comes to traffic. But I would love for that assistant to find me wherever. So it sends, hey, I go to work about the same time every day. It can sense where I'm at, when I'm going. When my car starts, it knows I'm going somewhere. It should do everything it can if there's an accident or a slowdown to alert me faster, sooner, to say, I know you normally go this way. You're not going to want to do that. We're going to reroute you this way, and here's why. That's kind of working, but I think we still have a ways to go in that user experience.
Yeah. And there's also there's an element of how much you're willing to surrender over to the machine. For example, are you going to blindly follow a rerouting, or are you going to want to know more about it, or are you going to know which roads it's taking you down, or how much extra time it's actually going to be, and are you going to trust that they've taken into account the fact that kids have just started going back to school and things. Like, there's so many things that we need to trust in the machine before we can actually allow the machine to do that thing for us. It's a fascinating space right now. That surrender.
It's a whole new world. I'm not gonna lie. I grew up in the first PC generation, right? I was those kids that grew up with the very first PCs, and we thought it was great. I think we're in a second or a third wave where we're just scratching the surface now on what these devices can do for us and how cool they can be.
I would agree. I think that we're definitely starting, I'd say, the third wave, because we now have digital natives. I'm sure you've heard that bandied around an awful lot, like ad nauseum, but these are kids who are growing up where voice assistants are the norm, smartphones are the norm, VR is going to be the norm. I guess I was a second wave. My first PC I got when I was, I think, 12 years old. Maybe, I think it's about 12, maybe a little bit older or younger. But it was like it was a Pentium 90, and with tiny little hard disk.
Pre-internet, right? Or-
Actually, just at the cusp. So it's 96 when I got my
so
machine.
It's just coming online.
So I had a V34
Yeah.
modem. So my first machine was internet connected. So
Okay.
I don't have any experience of a home computer that doesn't have internet.
Yeah.
That's all I've ever known. I mean, at school, obviously, we had 486s, which didn't have internet connections for about 2 or 3 years. But I was like the beginning of that's why I call it the second wave. It's when internet connections became the norm.
The connected PC, so to speak.
And then WAP phones and all that kind of stuff.
And it's what an amazing world we live in, Dave. We'll have to have you back on Home Gadget Geeks and talk more about this. But thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Hang tight for 1 second. We'll be back. If you're watching on the live page, and there's a few of you who are, we'll start the next video at the next video down. So you'll want to just look down there. All the videos throughout the day are listed there. And we'll close this one up. So we want to thank you for watching. We'll be back with the next video here in about 5 minutes. All right, Mike, I'll have to give you a shot to watch that video at some point as we get in there. But I think we'll do a wrap on the show here. Thanks for coming back. And I get you for now. And then when do I get you again?
I think the 9th of November will be the next time I will be back.
Okay.
And then I'll be back for quite a few weeks.
So we're working on Dave McCabe for the 9th, and we're going to do an all drone show. So we're going to talk about parts, and we're going to talk about the drones themselves, and what are the leaders, and what's a low, medium, and high purchase. And again, I'll probably try and get Keith Lunsford on here as well. Keith, if you're listening to this, just get in touch with me, would you? We'll see if then we can get you on the 9th. Be fun to talk about that as well. But Mike, good to have you back. Stay around for a few minutes. We'll do some post show.
Sounds good.
And, we'll do that. Don't forget Patreon. If you want to support it, Mike and I will come up with some kind of way for you to help us get this meetup going. I am going to probably look for at least 30 guys that will come down here, be a part of what we're doing. And Mike, I've got kind of a new angle on the way we do meetups. So I'll run that by you. We'll kind of work on some things with it. But
sounds great.
Kind of interesting. If you want to support the show, head out to the Patreon link. Just head out to theaverageguy.tv/support, or theaverageguy.tv. Just look for the Patreon link. If you want to contact us, you got questions, Neil, I always appreciate your comments every single week. Neil's been a great listener, and just he's the one guy every single week that just gives me great comments about what we're doing on the show. So Neil, appreciate your feedback. You could do it as well. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, or Twitter is very active for this group. You can do that as well. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people you know and you trust. For more information, visit maplegrovepartners.com. Of course, Christian's running that. The plans start at $10, both media and web hostings, optimized for podcasters. So if you're thinking about doing that, $10 a month, super cheap. One of the least expensive ways to go with podcasting. Check it out, maplegrovepartners.com. Don't forget, other Jim said drone racing. I think we're going to make drone racing a part of this Home Gadget Geeks meetup.
I like it.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Have you been down to the field in Council Bluffs over there by the casinos where they do model
dog track or what?
Yeah, well, it's on this side of the track, of the old track.
Yes. Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? They used to do old model, model plane.
Yep.
Can we just, I wonder if we can just take that place over for.
Well, I've been over there right by that lake too. What's that lake that's
Manawa? Like Manawa?
Yeah. I've flown it right over there, which is not too far. Yeah, I'm sure we could just take over that field and rip them around.
We should be able to find some space. And I think as part of the meetup on Saturday, it will be a drone afternoon.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Great.
Drone racing. So other Jim, yeah, maybe we'll get some drone racing in there. Don't forget, sorry, I got distracted there. Don't forget, you can catch Home Gadget Geeks on our mobile app, both iPhone and Android, available for you. We thank LastPass for their continued sponsorship of the app. And Amber's coming on here in a couple weeks. But you can download that, homegadgetgeeks.com. We thank LastPass for their great sponsorship. One more thing. Don't forget to join the newsletter, theaverageguy.tv/newsletter. There's a link, or /subscribe. Either one of those gets you there. I'm doing it almost weekly now, and so if you're subscribed to that, you're getting caught up on what's going on and where we're going. A few notes from me. I don't spam you, so jump out there, join the newsletter. A couple hundred of you out there. Actually, I think only 60. My newsletter got spammed. Do you remember that when I had a whole bunch of people sign up for it? They're still there, and it's like they never bounce. Those email accounts still work. People don't unsubscribe. I have no idea who those people are.
But hey, getting some high quality email content from
I
us.
get 250 on the list and only 60 get delivered. I mean, only 60 get opened pretty regularly. So I know I really only
So
have
they're
about.
killing your numbers though.
Oh
That's the
yeah,
sad
it's
part.
the percentage is awful.
Yeah.
The percent could be so much better, but we'll put up with it. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv live. If you're listening to the recorded version, thanks for listening to the long version. If you're here live, hang tight. We're going to do some post show, and with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.